Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you today. It's the cheese tag, as you could probably guess from that title. It's one of the foodie masterpieces of Josh over at Literary Gladiators, and I was tagged by Becky at Beck's Books, and it's a bunch of cheese-related questions. So I thought we'd get right to it with only one little disclaimer ahead of time. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you can already see it coming, which is that you shouldn't eat cheese. Leaving aside completely the health defects, 99.9% of the cheese that you get delivered to your plate gets there through torture of beings who dislike being tortured every bit as much as you would. Now, the Debbie Downer note got done with, we will now move on to the tag itself. Number one is processed cheese. If you like it, a book that's a guilty pleasure, and if you don't, a book that's overrated. For guilty pleasure here, I of course chose Meg, a book I've mentioned on this channel many times about a giant prehistoric killer shark. It's pretty much the ultimate guilty pleasure. Book number two is Emmentaler, a book with too many holes in its plot. It's just kind of clever, you have to admit. And for this, I'm not going to stray from my original answer. It would be Meg, in which nothing makes any sense at all. Nothing. I tell myself that's part of the charm. Question number three, Mozzarella, a book that is rightly renowned. For this season, this year, I'm going to pick Sarah Perry's The Essex Serpent, which has made the rounds on BookTube as a book that everybody loved the beautiful cover design, and also praised the book, and the book is worth it. The book was very good. Question number four, Sharp Cheddar, a book that is great despite sparking a sudden or sharp reaction. And I have a classic for this one that often gets overlooked. Its quality often gets overlooked because of the reaction that it sparked, and that's Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, which it read completely divorced from the American Civil War or American slavery or the abolition movement, is a very well done and moving book. So I thought of it right away when this came up. Question number five, Munster, a book that shouldn't be judged by its cover. I have an example for you here, and it might surprise some of you because it's not an author that I'm known to like, but nevertheless. Let me find it here. It's an author, in fact, who I've criticized on this channel, and I've also criticized her relentlessly elsewhere. But this particular book of hers was quite good and is poorly served by its American cover, and that is Hagseed by Margaret Atwood, which, once again, the colors are bleeding out here, but let's see if I can get the camera to focus on this. I don't know what that is. Is that shark fins made of barbed wire? I have no idea. But if you go online and look at the UK cover of the book, you'll see what a well-designed cover looks like. And it's a good book, so it's extra ironic to me that it looks so boring and so incomprehensible. Let's see here. Question number six, Parmigiano Reggiano, a book that has a complete package. I have one in mind. It's a bit pricey. It's called The Art Museum. Came out probably 3 years ago. It's by Phaidon Press. It's an enormous book of art that is kind of meant to walk you through a great art museum. It's an amazing experience, not just to see the artwork, but to go through the book as it's designed from front to back. I highly recommend it. You'll never see it used, but if you have the money to splurge and love this sort of thing, you'll also never see it at your library, I bet. It's the type of thing you pretty much have to buy if you're going to have it, but or have it sent by the publisher. Let's move on, shall we? Question number seven, Feta, a book that leaves its mark. For me, this time around, that would be Dune. It was the subject of a read-along this summer to which I was not invited. And the first time I read it, long before most of you were born, when it first came out, I remember the dramatic effect it had on me, because on the planet Dune, on Arrakis, water is incredibly precious. It never falls from the sky. It almost never exists. It doesn't exist on the surface of the planet. It has to be tricked out of the ecosystem. And it's all through the book. And in a way that I remember for weeks after I finished my first reading of Dune, I was conscious of how long I had the faucet on in the sink or in the tub, because I kept thinking water is precious on Dune. And that's neat when a book can do that. Question number 8, Roquefort, a book you feel deserves more recognition. The one that I had in mind was Louis Bayard's novel, Roosevelt's Beast, in which he takes the real life expedition that ex-President Theodore Roosevelt went on with his son into the Amazon wilderness in 1914 and reimagines it as this fantasia trek of I didn't think it would work. I saw immediately. I saw in 5 pages what he was trying to do, and I thought, there's no way you'll sustain this for the whole book, but he does. He's a great author anyway. I really like him. I wish he was better known. But this book, it's wonderful. I'll leave the mentions of all these things down below. Question number 9 is Asiago, a book that was beyond your expectations. And for me, I get this a lot because I read a lot of self-published novels. And unfortunately, with self-published novels, your expectations are at rock bottom when you go into them because no one's overseeing their production. A lot of authors don't think they need beta readers or editors or proofreaders. So you end up, if you read as much self-published stuff as I do, you end up reading a lot of stuff that just badly disappoints. So when I get a self-published novel that not only is good but is great, it stands out. And fortunately that happens regularly to me. And I want to show you, if I can call up the picture here, I want to show you the latest example. It's this. It's Jane the Queen by Janet Wertman. It's book 1 in a historical fiction series that she's doing about the Seymour family, who are also some of the inadvertent stars of, for instance, Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall books. And the book is fantastic. I would love to know the story of, and I will get the story, and I will tell the story of why this author decided to just skip the stupid rat race of professional publishing. But I'm glad she did, because all this book needs to do is find an audience. It doesn't need to jump through hoops for an agent or a publicity department or anything like that. And for those of you who like Tudor historical fiction, I strongly recommend that you become part of that audience. So like I said, I'll leave all the info down below. Question number 10, Gouda, a book that was a lighthearted delight. And for this, let me see if I can get, the pictures seem to be behaving themselves fairly well. And I have a picture of this. It's a novel from a few years ago that I just loved. It's by David Rosen, and it's called I Just Want My Pants Back. That I didn't know. I didn't know that it was made into an MTV series. And I've never seen the series. I'll have to see if it's on Netflix and if it's any good. But the book is hilarious. It's about a schlub of a guy who, in the course of a raucous night of partying, loses his pants and then goes on an epic Ulyssean quest to get them back, to find the one great woman who has them. It works really well. It's stupid, but it works really well. Question number 11, Limburger, a book that proved too much to endure. Well, the thing I have in mind didn't prove too much to endure, because nothing does for me. I might stop a book because the author is boring me, but I don't stop a book because the author is asking a lot of me. That's kind of what I'm here for. And the example that I have in mind is probably the classic examples from forever ago. It's Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow. And it's not the book. The book is a postmodern masterpiece that is not by any means easy to read, but there's one particular scene. Those of you who have read Gravity's Rainbow will know exactly what I'm talking about. It separates the wheat from the chaff as far as readers go. And if you're going to stop, not only Thomas Pynchon, but perhaps reading forever, that's the scene that will do it. That scene separates people. And it's a mark of, I read Pynchon, I've taught Pynchon, and that is the dividing line between the people who are going to leave postmodern literature altogether and the people who are going to stick with Pynchon and discover the true genius that he is. That chapter, I think, was intentional on his part to get rid of the posers. Well, one way or another. That particular scene, which I can't even describe for a family channel, is the first example that comes to mind. And then question number 12, the last question, Brie, a book that gave you a warm, mushy feeling. And I'm going to go right back to Meg. gives you the warm, gushy feeling of blood pumping out of your severed femoral artery as Meg delights and swims around. And that only leaves with the tagging. I tag reading with pugs, of course. I tag, let's see here, insert literary pun here. I'd love to see what you do with this. I tag Jack the Bibliophile. Do they have cheese in Australia? I don't really know. I've never been there. You could tell us all about it. Thank you, BookTube.